Welcome back to CryptosRUs. I'm George. We're all George. So today we got some numbers, job numbers, and it ain't that good. So let's talk about what this means going forward, why I put the brakes on Bitcoin and crypto, and let's talk about everything else that's going on in the world today. All right. Let's do it, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Starting out day 110.7, slightly lower than yesterday. Okay, and it's all because of the jobs report. I mean, the U.S. market actually starting out not bad. NASDAQ and S&P is green, Dow is red. But crypto got affected. And what came out? Well, according to ADP, the U.S. only added about 54,000 jobs, okay, in August. And that's well short of the 75,000 estimate and well short of the 106,000 added in July. So obviously, that's like in half, okay? So we're still adding jobs, but not nearly as much as anticipated. Okay, so this is from ADP. Tomorrow we'll get another one, a more official one from the government, but still, this gives you a really good insight into what's going on. So overall, the economy is definitely slowing down. Employers are just hesitant about hiring so much at this point because of a lot of stuff that's going on, including, you know what? The tariffs, right? A lot of goods and services have gone up because of the tariffs. But the courts just shut it down. So now Trump is asking the Supreme Court to have an expedited hearing about the tariffs and see if they overrule the appellate court and appeals court, and we'll see. But that's one of the reasons why, right? But overall, employers are just not hiring nearly as much. And tomorrow we will get an unemployment report too. So it'll be interesting to see if unemployment ticks up. And if it does, it'll be interesting to see if it helps the market or it doesn't. Today's report definitely did help increase the percentages for further rate cuts. So even last night, we were at like 96%. Now we're almost to 98% guaranteed that basically we'll get rate cut. But what's more interesting is in October now, the next rate cut is over 50%, 54%. And then December, we could have another rate cut, and that's at 45%. So bad jobs report helps with more rate cuts. Right, so tomorrow will be interesting to see what comes out from the unemployment report and the official government jobs report. So yeah, that's what's going on. However, you know, looking at yesterday's inflow, very, very healthy for Bitcoin. 300 million, just like the day before, 332 million. So Wall Street is coming back. Okay, they're not waiting. They are buying ahead of time. So huge inflow for BlackRock, $290 million. However, if you look at Ethereum, it's going the opposite direction. Ethereum had a negative day, 38.2 million outflow. It's weird because the other funds besides BlackRock purchased, but BlackRock sold off 151 million, and that's following 2 days of zero buying. What's going on with BlackRock's Ethereum ETF? Did they all of a sudden change their mind, or investors, I should say, change their minds because this is a ETF? We don't know. We don't know. I mean, ETH's price hasn't really been affected by it. Still holding around 4,400, but you know, things seems to have changed slightly. Okay, the momentum is shifting back to Bitcoin. Quite interesting. Quite interesting. All right. Now, as for Bitcoin, right? I mentioned yesterday, unfortunately, we were not able to hold it. A lot of traders are looking at this 112 mark, saying that Bitcoin needs to be above it for us to reclaim the momentum. If we go below, we could have more weakness. Okay. And why did I think that? Well, it's based on, indicators and moving averages and so forth. There's a lot of that. You look at previous resistances, supports, right? That's what you do. But let's not forget, Bitcoin's Bitcoin, right? We got really good fundamentals. We got really good buying. We got a lot of stuff. So, sometimes with the charts, with these estimates, you got to take it with a grain of salt. What's interesting is, in August, which was just last month, nearly 100% of people holding Bitcoin was into profit. Think about that. That was just last month, last month, 99.96%. So even though we have come down a little bit, that does not mean things are over, okay? But obviously, we would like to see it recover quickly. But right now, some of the macro stuff is scaring off investors. But we know things could turn around really, really quickly. But that's how it is right now. We're just kind of like stuck in this phase. But that's quite okay. We've been through it before. There are a lot of futures traders that are doubling down because they know that this bull run is not over. We're still in the mid-bull zone, right? And I believe that. There's no way that this run is over. And you could just base it off of history too, because we have seen this before. Previous cycles were right before the parabolic phase, we have a slight correction. 2017, man, I still remember 2017. But if you look at it, what happened in 2017? You had a weak September, around mid-September, right? And then we had blast off. And we're looking very similar. And keep in mind, what's going to happen mid-September this year? We are getting that rate cut. That could certainly set things off and basically make Bitcoin mimic the 2017 cycle, right? We don't have many months left of this year, but that's okay. During the final months of a bull run, that's the most parabolic, especially for alts. True altcoin season, a lot of you guys are looking for that. That happens at the very tail end, the last few months of the cycle. And that's assuming the cycle is ending in December or January. We may not, and we may keep on going, which is fine by me. But if we're just following a traditional 4-year cycle, it should end somewhere between November, December, maybe early January. Because in 2017, it didn't end in 2017. The alts actually ran till mid-January of 2018. Those of you guys, if you lived through that, you'll remember that. Those last 2 weeks were crazy times. Anyways, here's another graph showing that, there's a weekly hidden divergence, bullish divergence, I should say. And this one is showing, hey, we went through a huge inverse head and shoulders. Now we're going through a smaller one. And normally speaking, if this was a head and shoulders, it would be 100% confirmed. But because it's inverse head and shoulders, people are hesitant about that. But it looks exactly like what it is, which is good. But ultimately, what I believe in is the fundamentals, right? You guys know that the best strategy is HODL and DCA. Bitcoin's not going anywhere. We go through some of these little corrections and we always get past it. Always. But what about outside of Bitcoin? What about Ethereum? I just got done saying Ethereum outflows, little concerning over the last 3 days. BlackRock selling a ton yesterday, and yesterday was a good day. No idea why. But Tom Lee does not care about BlackRock. His company, BitMine, just added another $358 million worth of ETH. Okay. That's a lot. That's a lot. He is the biggest holder of ETH, I think, at this point. He's like the Sailor of ETH, even though Sailor's not the biggest holder. But he's going to continue forward, pressing it. Yesterday, I just covered a story about how not a story, interview where he talked about ETH is going to go 60,000 plus. I don't think he means within the next few months, but like overall, it's going to get there. If that's the case, that's still like a 12x, 13x from here. That could be the end of next cycle. That would be crazy. That would be crazy. What if ETH did a 5x from here? That would bring it to 20,000 already. You just never know. Tail end of altcoin season, things get crazy. But right now, unfortunately though, because of all the buying and all the traffic and stuff like that, the validator queues is facing a 14-day delay. See, this is one of the problems with ETH is it's just still, it gets slow, it gets congested, can't handle a lot of volume. But I guess in this case, it's a good problem to have, right? To have so much volume because there's so much excitement over it, right? So I guess that's the good thing. That's the good thing. All right, what else is there? Let's see, a final few things. Cardano. Cardano went through this controversy months ago. And that's because people from, I didn't even know this, people from within the Cardano Foundation. Okay, there's 3 entities to Cardano. Okay, so you got to, it's a little confusing, but they have 3 entities because they want to be decentralized. They have the Cardano Foundation, they have IOHK, and Emergo. Charles Hoskinson works within IOHK, but he's kind of like the face of Cardano. Anyways, there's these 3 entities. So employees within the Cardano Foundation came out and said Charles and others like stole $600 million of the ADA. And this was from like years ago. Right, and Charles is like, no, I didn't. No, we didn't. So he did some third-party independent audit, and the audit says no, all the 600 million wasn't stolen by early investors or anything like that. It went to some treasury, and that's the end of that. But Charles is really mad about it, saying that we need to hold the people from Cardano Foundation accountable, right? And I don't know why they would do that, but there's always been like this weird tension between Cardano Foundation, IOHK, and Emergo. So it's kind of weird, but he basically said, you know what? This proves we didn't take anything, which is good. I don't think anyone thought that he took anything, but there was a lot of backlash when it came out, definitely. But if you are a Cardano fan, ChatGPT has some good news for you. ChatGPT predicts that Cardano will be $4 by the end of October. That's 2 months. 2 months. And where is Cardano now? Like below $1, I think. Where's ADA? 81 cents. So AI is predicting that Cardano is going to go from 81 cents to $4 by the end of October in 2 months. Will they be correct? I don't know. We'll see. And in case you're wondering about other AI predictions, I saw this article. DeepSeek AI predicts that Ethereum is going to be upwards of 8,200 by the end of this month. End of this cycle, I'm sorry. XRP could be about 550. This is on the top end, by the way. And Solana at 450. These are actually, I think, pretty conservative estimates. At least DeepSeek's. I don't know about Cardano hitting $4 by the end of October. Okay. But, you know, ETH at 8,200, XRP at 550, Sol at 450. This is like barely doubling. It's not even doubling. It's less than doubling by the end of the cycle. I guess we'll have to see. We have to see how fast and how high Bitcoin gets. And then we'll go. Right. And speaking of AI, there is a new project that came across my table called Planck. They're completely in AI. We don't see a lot of new AI projects in this space. Or maybe we do. I don't hear a lot about them. But this one's hyped up because of the founders. And I'll get to that a little bit. But anyways, Planck is a new project just focused exclusively on AI. And they already have GPUs in operation. So who are the founders? Why are they important? Well, we just talked about Ethereum. You got Scott Walker, which is a very early investor in Ethereum. Not well known, but he's one of the early investors. And then Brock Pierce, who's the co-founder of Tether, which of course is the biggest stablecoin on the planet. And EOS. Some of you guys may remember EOS. That project did not. It had a year-long ICO and it raised like $4 billion back in the day. This was from the 2018 days. Anyways, they're backing this project. Okay, so Planck is a couple different things. They're already operational. They have GPU infrastructure around the world in major data centers, but they're coming out to layer 0 for other L1s and DePIN projects specifically to launch on. They do have a compute layer, which projects and chains can get direct access to huge amounts of GPUs. And they have AI Studio and GPU console and stuff like that, right? So pretty hyped up. Let's see what they do. You know, projects that come out at end of cycles, they tend to do the best. So like timing is very important, right? A lot of the projects, the well-known projects today, came out during like the last few months of 2021, and some of the other projects like say Cardano, we just got talking about it, came out the last few months or got hot the last few months in the previous cycle in 2017 to 2018 cycle. So we'll see. And then this project is going to come out in October, end of October. So they're timing it well. It may do well because it's coming out at the end of the cycle. They're timing it really good. All right, that is it. Overall, let's see. Hey, you know what? Today, the U.S. market ain't doing too bad. In fact, you figure it should be doing well because we got more, ammunition for the Fed to cut further, right? So you figure today should be a good day. Should be very green. MicroStrategy and Coinbase down, Nvidia down, Robin is up, but Bitcoin is down slightly, ETH down slightly, Sol down slightly. So today is like opposite of yesterday. Yesterday was surprise. We went up when I think most people thought we were going to go down, and today is the opposite. Today is like I thought everything should go up, but we're going down. It is what it is. All right, let's do some Q&A. Dr. Genocide, please don't at me in the live chat. That's one of my pet peeves. When people do it too much, I end up timing them out or banning them, but I know you're a regular, so I don't know how much of your portfolio you should allocate to ETH, if any at all. Remember, I advocate the 50-25-25 rule. And 25% should be big caps, at least. So it could be ETH, it could be Sol, it could be Cardano, it could be whatever. I did get the lift installed. It's in my garage. It looks nice. It frees up some space. I just didn't like how it didn't come with any power cables. I had to like jerry rig something myself. Didn't like that. Alt Zulu asks, can you talk about Ripple, Uniswap, Scrutinize, and Circle using Wormhole? That's a lot. I don't know what you want me to talk about. Wormhole is just the interoperability layer that connects a whole bunch of chains together. So I don't know where you're going with that, unless there's some new partnership or something. Have I seen Sopranos? No, I have not. I've seen clips of it. And it looks good, and I've heard good things about it, but I have not watched it. You know, there's a lot of shows I haven't been watching because I've been like hardcore playing Clash Royale. I don't know why. Really addicted to that game, so I haven't really watched any TV. Peacemaker season 2 came out on HBO. I've been meaning to watch that, and then I saw some new AI show on Apple TV, I think, that looks interesting. Invasion or something like that. But my last show that I finished, that I still really enjoy except the ending, is Snowfall. Jazz Neil, how high can Pith go? I don't know. Recently it pumped up crazy, and then it started coming down. You know, Pith and Chainlink, they were both selected to get data from the U.S. government or be able to fetch data from the government. And then I think a lot of the whales just pumped it up. They are still nowhere near the all-time high. Chainlink, on the other hand, is still the biggest oracle there is. Daryl says, have you been looking at the 18-year housing cycle? It's meant to end in 2025, early 2026. Last one was 2008. It has been correct for 100 years. What does that mean? That means there's going to be a crash in 2008? Is that what it means? Dr. Genocide, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. I highly appreciate it, but you don't need to do that. I just appreciate your support. What's this house cycle? Here we go. Understanding the 18-year property cycle. This came out in 2022, 3 years ago. It's a powerful concept that there's a reason why property prices always go up in the long run, giving you more confidence that they won't go up in a smooth straight line. Yes, we already know stuff like that. But what this doesn't really say anything. Each cycle starts from a higher bottom. So even with the crash, it's still higher than before. And this is what it looks like. The problem with this is, if we're in year 18 right now, housing prices are still like high. They haven't really come down. In fact, I would say we're like near peak right now. So that's not exactly right, but I need something that shows the years. $1975, 1993, 2011. Yeah, I did predict the 2008. So, yeah, I'll look into it. I'll look into it and see if there's something. Maybe there's something that relates to Bitcoin with this, or just stocks in general. Tyler says, I bought my house right before COVID lockdowns. Now I'm up 86K. Congratulations. Buying anything during COVID, if you had the cash, was a good idea. I mean, literally everything. Housing. I mean, everything went down, but then if you bought at the bottom, that's what I meant to say. Like, if you bought houses, they skyrocketed. You bought cars, they skyrocketed. You bought watches, they skyrocketed. Obviously, if you bought Bitcoin, it fell down to $3,800. $3,800. And look at where we are. And Ethereum was below $100. I think Ethereum was like 100, right at 100 or 90 something. It was a crazy time. It was really a crazy time. And most of those assets are still sky high now. Obviously, Bitcoin and Ether. Watches are starting to come down, but like cars, like the high-end cars, they have not come down. And they're still going higher. Sports cards, Pokemon cards started skyrocketing. And even though they come down a little bit, they're still very high. I bought a house in 2017, double in price now. Value keeps going up, 3% interest. Congrats. I'm actually thinking about buying a rental property too. So there's this new thing. Okay. For those of you guys that are in real estate or not in real estate and you're thinking about it, there's a new tax code that allows for basically anything on the inside of a rental property or properties in general to be accelerated, to be depreciated in an accelerated way, accelerated depreciation. So you don't have the structure itself is 27.5 years in terms of depreciation, but things on the inside that you used to have to wait 5, 10, 15 years to depreciate, you can depreciate immediately upon purchase. You don't even have to put any money to do it. You could just depreciate it. So that's huge. That's huge. So now I'm thinking about it. I want to purchase some properties by the end of this year. Crypto MB, exactly. You could use that to offset, say, crypto gains or any income, any gains really, as long as you have a business. I don't even know if you yeah, I don't even think you need a business. You could just be whatever. But yeah, you guys get the point. I think you just wait for the property to appreciate, or you just take the cash flow. But I think in this case, if you're looking for tax savings, then you just look for properties. You don't care so much about cash flow as long as it covers your mortgage. You just want the property to appreciate. D-League Crypto says, I'm scared the cycle's over. Do you think it has more to go? Yes. We're nowhere close to the top. Nowhere close. 2017 happened. We don't even have to go back to 2017. Just go back last year. Last year, heading into September, was horrible. Horrible. And then we picked ourselves back up the last few weeks of September, and then we had a good October, and we had a fantastic November. That was just last year. We're repeating the same thing. Coinbase turned green, so that's always a good sign. And Robinhood is finally up a little bit. So when Coinbase turns green, that's usually a good sign for crypto. Let's see. Netflix is up. Bitcoin Diamond is slightly up. We can certainly see a turnaround today. You King, what are your thoughts on how many X's could be made for the bulk of the market? 3X, 5X? I would say almost every big cap, at least a 3X. That's super conservative. It's more like 4 or 5X. If you're holding mid caps to small caps, anywhere from 5 to 10X. Bitcoin, 2X. That's how I see it. Big Wilmkey says, do not buy rentals in caps. Why is that? The rates will be cut. We're at 97% for this month, okay? Today's jobs numbers from ADP push it up a little more. What's more important is October, we're above 52% for another cut. In Canada, if a renter stops paying rent, you can't do anything about it. You know, I never understood that. I don't know why local governments, and some states are like that, and some countries are like that. I don't get why the government thinks it's okay for squatters to just keep on squatting. How is that okay? Like, where's the common sense in that? If someone stops paying, you kick them out. Just like for cars, if you stop paying your finance payments or lease payments, guess what? They're going to come and take your car away. It's not like you could just keep it from the dealership or the manufacturer. Just like with anything else, if you stop paying for your water, they cut off the water. So I don't get why when it comes to housing that there are these laws that say, well, like this happened, you hear about with Airbnb and stuff. If someone stays here at Airbnb, they could just stay there and never leave. Like, why does governments allow that to happen? Someone explain that to me. Like, it makes no sense at all. I never understood that. Now I'm hearing more like states or cities are trying to change that. But why do they need to change it? That's just common sense. You know, if this was in China, just like throw you in jail. So like things like that don't exist in some of these other countries. They just laugh at how the US has to like worry about stuff like that. They throw you in jail for like 10 years or something, you know, if you're going to be stupid like that. I didn't know Canada was like that either. All right, now we're reversing and not in a good way. Do you think MSTR will be added to S&P 500 tomorrow? I think there's a good chance. It meets all criteria. There's no reason why, other than if the committee who's selecting thinks that MicroStrategy is too volatile. People are saying it's to be compassionate for people, but obviously there's a difference between squatters that do it on purpose versus people that are like behind, right? if a renter's behind 1 month or 2 months because they lost their job or whatever and they're really trying, that's a different story than there are people that purposely doing it because they know how to circumvent the laws. There's a difference there. Yeah, that is the only thing that I'm concerned about rental incomes. I hear horror stories about how it's very difficult to kick out some of these people. You have legal recourse for squatters. You have to go through a legal ejectment process. Governments give leeway to squatters because it's bad for society, too excessive. You would think that, but there are places where there's just no legal recourse. You just cannot kick them out, no matter what. I know it's like the legal process is like, you know, you have to allow them time to pay back the owed rent, and they could pay partially, and then it like takes forever. There are places like that, but there are places where they just don't pay, and you can't kick them out, no matter what. You can bring them to court all day long. The cops cannot enter the premise, cannot remove them. They don't have to show up, and it makes no sense. Um, who will be the winner of this run, Sui or Say? I like Sui more. I have a soft spot for them. They have done very well, and I think they will pick up again. So I'm gonna say Sui. Did something come out that reversed the markets? I don't see anything. Maybe let's try like Yahoo Finance or something. Nope. U.S. trade gap widens the largest in 4 months. This will be interesting. I wonder what happens if the Supreme Court rules no. Then I don't know what's going to happen. I think Trump says he has a backup plan. I don't know what that means. Or he could just lobby Congress to approve the tariffs, and that would solve it. I don't know what would happen if they said no. Dimitri. 2 rental units. You want to buy more Bitcoin? Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking for like multifamily units, like a 4 flat or 6 flat or 8 flat or something like that. Turtle Rat says, "Hey George, tariffs are crushing real Americans. It for sure is having an effect, and not in a good way. I mean, even when companies have come out and reported their earnings, they have said so as much, right? So this is not like a left thing or a right thing. It's just a numbers thing. When imported goods have to pay 10% more or 30% more or whatever more. They're going to be more expensive. One way or another, it's going to be passed on to the consumer. So companies have come out and said, yeah, we have to raise prices. Like a lot of these big companies have said so. So, you know, there's always this thing. Everything gets turned politically. Like if you don't like it, you're like, oh, you're on the left. You know, it's just common sense, right? The numbers had to come somewhere. But on the other hand, supposedly there's been hundreds of billions collected in tariffs. Where's that money going to, right? Is it really making a dent in our deficit? Is it really being used to pay off our deficit? Maybe over time it will, but right now it's like a drop in the bucket. It doesn't come close to even our interest payments, right? We pay more than $1 trillion in interest payments alone a year. So it's nowhere close to that. So again, I don't know, you know. Even if they were allowed to stay, will it really fix things? I just don't know. Blue says, I work at Walmart and almost every week we change tags and increases prices by $2, $3. I work in the clothing department. Well, thank you for that confirmation. Who's paying Trump's tariffs? Whoever's importing the goods. It could be American companies. It could be foreign companies. It doesn't matter. Whoever is importing is the one that's paying. That's what a lot of people don't understand. It's like, oh, you know, you have this tariff on China. Anything coming in China has to pay 30%, right? But keep in mind, a lot of stuff coming in from China is from American companies. So the American companies are paying, not China. But people don't understand the concept. They're like, oh yeah, China's paying the 30%. No, it's the importers. Whoever's importing is paying. It could be Walmart, it could be Target, it could be Costco, it could be any number of companies, it could be Apple, it could be any number of companies that's importing in from China or from wherever. But I got the bigger picture is you want companies to build here and manufacture here and produce here, right? I think that's the bigger picture. Besides just balancing out from the collected tariffs, the main benefit is to get companies to build and produce here. Yeah. So, you know, in the long run, it may help bring America back to being a manufacturing powerhouse. Short term, it's going to suck. Bad job numbers increase the rate cuts? Yes. Yes. Revo, it's basically a sales tax. Government needs this money, whether it's income tax, capital gains tax, tariffs. Have you ever thought about taxes, guys? I don't know if you guys ever thought about it really. We just kind of all accept it, but you got to pay income tax. So first of all, your money is taxed, right? Whatever your tax bracket is, 20%, 25, 30, 40, that's already gone. And then you have to pay a sales tax. When you buy something, there's also a tax, right? So that's like double taxation. You're already taxed on what you make, then you're taxed on what you buy. That's a lot of taxes. That's a lot of taxes. You add it all together, you're paying more than 50%. Sometimes even higher than that. That's a lot of taxes. So it's like everything is taxed. If you sell something, you're taxed on that. If you are a business owner, you have employees, you're taxed on your employees. Like literally everything that involves money, there's a tax. And tariffs is another tax. If you import something, there's a tax on that too. I'm pretty sure if you're exporting, there's also a tax. I'm just not aware of it. I'm sure there's exporting tax too. All these tax dollars, where do they go? Well, that's how the government makes money. But the tax dollars collected isn't nearly enough to pay back what we owe and spend. The government spends just way, way, way too much. So when they don't have enough tax money, what do? They borrow money or they create money. They print it. They try to limit the printing, so they try to borrow as much as they can. But if that still doesn't work, what happens? They print money. Oh yeah, property tax too. Let's not forget. You buy a property, even with cash, or if you pay it off in 20 years, 30 years, guess what? You still have to pay property tax. You figure you pay off something, you don't owe anything on it anymore, right? No, you still have to pay property tax. Tax on the land and the property itself. That never goes away. How does that make sense? With the car, if you pay it off, you owe it. You don't have to put any more money into it other than insurance if you need to drive it. But it could just sit there forever and you never had to pay any more money on it. But not with houses. You have to pay property tax, and those property taxes go up every year and it never stops. How does that make sense? You happen to dig and find gold, or maybe not gold, no one knows, but you happen to dig and find oil in your backyard, guess what? It doesn't belong to you. The government controls the rights below like 20 feet or 30 feet or 100 or whatever the law is. So if you strike oil, it's not yours. Same thing with the air rights above your property. It's like after 100 feet or something, it's no longer yours. Awesome Austin. Cycle top won't happen until easing is over in 5/26. Well, that's good. I hope you're right. And Alan says, plus, if you inherited that property, you can't afford a property tax, you're forced to sell it. Yeah, because you have to pay. That property tax is a lot. For some people, they can't afford it. In Texas, mineral rights are all private. That's interesting. Does that include oil, or just like gold and copper and stuff like that? Basically, there's a tax on everything. If you think about it, your life is just taxed. It's a never-ending cycle where you basically have to be forced to always have money. So if you're in a position where you've made life-changing wealth, great. But for everyone else that's still working and trying to feed their families and so forth, you're forced to work forever, basically. With everything that's happening, with all the taxes and everything, and living expenses continue to rise, inflation continues to rise, but your income does not rise at the same level. That's why people are working more and more years, and retirement is not at 60s anymore. A lot of people work until the 70s or 80s, and some people work forever. Iggy, that's basically what it is through taxes and inflation. And inflation itself is a tax. I mean, that's the best way to look at it. What is inflation? It's really a tax. And, according to CPI or PPI or PCE, our inflation rate is at, 3%? A little bit less than 3%? That's because they select the bucket of goods that moves the least amount. Real inflation, if you look at like properties, for example, which is a really good indicator, and other goods that obviously move more, it's more like 7% a year. 7% a year. Do people get 7% increases with their income per year? No. No, they do not. So just think about how hard it is to struggle when things are going up 7% a year and you're getting like a 2% raise or 3% raise. So, and then you times that by 10 years, how far are you behind, right? It adds up really quickly. So that's why we have the lottery system. That's why everyone wants to win the lottery. And then you get scammed to the lottery too. That's the thing. What, did anyone win the Powerball yesterday? No one won the Powerball. It's almost to 2 billion. Wow. Next drawing. Saturday. 1.7 billion. See, here's the thing. How you get screwed the Powerball too. You win 1.7 billion. But if you opt to take it, they already take more than half. You're only getting 770 million. It's not even half. You figure you take cash value, okay, they remove half. That's less than half. And then you got to pay 40% tax on this. And depending on which state you live in, if you're in California, I think California's state income tax is 12%. So you pay 40% federal income tax, then you pay 12% state tax. You're left with like 300 million, right? I know 300 million is a lot of money, but that's 300 million that you get from winning a $1.7 billion jackpot. See, they always win. And states say that, they take the lottery winnings and they use it to pay, schools and roads and stuff like that. But do they really? All the states are so broke. They're all in debt too. Where does that money go? Probably most of it into politicians' pockets. Anyways, I rambled on enough. The system is not fair. Okay? The system is not fair. That's basically the bottom line. And everyone that does not attain financial freedom and life-changing wealth is go get screwed. That's the message. So that's why we have Bitcoin and crypto, because Bitcoin was created to get you out of the system, one that isn't meant to suppress you and keep you working forever, right? So stay strong, my friends. I will see you guys tonight, 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, all right? Have a good one. Smash a like, subscribe to the channel. Take care. Bye-bye.